Pirates survived brutal winter storms using 7 methods that sound completely insane. These weren't desperate last resorts, they were calculated survival strategies that separated living crews from frozen corpses. What could possibly be so effective that pirates willingly chose these bizarre techniques during the deadliest months at sea? The first method involved turning animal corpses into the worst-smelling heat source imaginable. Pirates burnt animal fat, called tallow, to create heat and light during freezing winter voyages. This greasy substance came from melting down chunks of fat from cows, pigs, sheep, or any other animals they could find. The process was simple, but smelled terrible. Pirates would heat animal fat in metal pots over cooking fires until it turned into a waxy, yellowish material that burned slowly. It was basically the world's stinkiest candle, but at least it worked. The smell was so bad it could probably knock a person unconscious, but when you're freezing to death in the middle of the ocean, even the worst-smelling warmth becomes precious. A single tallow lamp could provide steady heat for hours, unlike wood fires that got soaked by ocean spray and died out quickly. Tallow served multiple purposes beyond just heating. Pirates used the same fat for waterproofing their ropes, leather gear, and canvas sails. Smart crews would rub tallow directly on their clothes and skin to create a barrier against cold wind and salty spray. The really desperate pirates discovered that tallow could work as emergency food when regular supplies ran low. Imagine chewing on a greasy candle for dinner. Not exactly fine dining, but better than starving. What made tallow so effective was basic science. Fat burns much longer and hotter than wood, which was often wet and hard to find on ships. Pirates learned that placing several tallow lamps around their sleeping areas could raise the temperature just enough to prevent frostbite during the worst nights. Making tallow became a group activity during long, boring stretches at sea. It was like the greasiest team meeting in history. These sessions helped build friendships and trust among crew members who depended on each other for survival. Knowledge about tallow spread quickly through the pirate community without any formal teaching. Pirates basically turned cooking into the world's smelliest bonding experience. Tallow provided basic warmth, but pirates needed more reliable heat sources that didn't depend on having dead animals around. Galley hearths were brick or tile ovens built into ships for food preparation, becoming the only controlled fire allowed on board due to fire risk. These cooking areas provided steady heat during winter months, but the warmth stayed mostly within the galley itself. Pirates discovered that crowding into the cooking space was their best bet for staying warm during the coldest nights. It was like having the world's most exclusive sauna, except it smelled like hardtack and burnt fish. Larger ships built their galley ovens low in the hold for fire safety and proper weight balance. This meant pirates had to climb down into the ship's belly to find warmth, competing for space around the only legal fire on the vessel. The galley became prime real estate during winter storms. Pirates would gather around the brick oven, taking turns cooking meals and soaking up heat from the radiating stones. Smart crews learned to time their cooking so the oven stayed warm throughout the day and into the evening hours. Pirates basically turned dinner time into a heating competition where everyone wanted to be the chef. The brick or tile construction held heat much longer than metal, so even after cooking finished, the oven continued warming the galley area for hours. Pirates would linger in the cooking space long after meals ended. Getting access to galley warmth required careful scheduling and social politics. It was like fighting for the best seat at a campfire, except the campfire was also your kitchen and your only legal source of heat. Crew members developed unofficial rotation systems to share oven time fairly during the coldest periods. The technique worked best on larger vessels with substantial galley ovens that could accommodate multiple people. Smaller ships often had tiny cooking areas that barely fit one person, making galley warming less practical for entire crews. Pirates discovered that the most valuable real estate on their ship wasn't the captain's quarters. It was wherever food got cooked. The galley hearth provided reliable, safe warmth without the extreme risks of other heating methods, making it the foundation of most winter survival strategies. When galley warmth wasn't enough, pirates turned to methods that required no equipment but plenty of courage. Sleeping near gunpowder kegs sounds completely insane, but desperate pirates chose this terrifying option during freezing winter nights. Gunpowder storage areas were the warmest, driest spaces on ships because any moisture could ruin the explosive contents and kill everyone on board. These rooms were built near the ship's center, away from openings that let in cold air. It was like sleeping next to a giant bomb that happened to be your only friend keeping you from freezing to death. Thick wooden walls, sealed doors, and careful padding made these spaces much warmer than the drafty crew sleeping areas. Shipbuilders made these areas warm on purpose to keep gunpowder dry and usable. Gunpowder in the 16 and 1700s was incredibly unstable. A single spark, too much rubbing, or even static electricity could trigger an explosion that would blow up the entire ship. Pirates who chose to sleep near powder kegs were betting their lives that they could stay warm without accidentally ending their existence. Overcrowding made this dangerous choice more common. Pirate ships often carried more people than they were designed for, especially after successful raids. With sleeping spots packed tight, some sailors had no choice but to find other places to rest. Pirates actually created safety rules for sleeping next to explosives. They removed all metal objects that could make sparks and banned smoking completely. Some crews assigned guards to watch sleeping pirates and make sure nobody did anything stupid while half asleep. It was like having babysitters for grown men who chose to nap next to explosives. The mental challenge was just as hard as the physical danger. It was gambling with the highest possible stakes, where losing meant there wouldn't be enough left of you to bury. Pirates also found that the powder magazine was much quieter than other parts of the ship, which helped exhausted sailors get better rest. This warming method was appealing because it needed no special equipment, fuel, or preparation. These were people who faced death daily in sword fights, but their biggest danger might have been taking a nap in the wrong spot. Pirates discovered that their most dangerous enemy wasn't other ships or storms. It was their own bedroom choices. This led some crews to experiment with even stranger methods that turned common materials into survival tools. Wet blanket wind barriers involved soaking blankets and canvas in water, then letting them freeze solid to create barriers against icy ocean winds. This backward-seeming method turned soggy fabric into protective walls that could block the endless cold air that made winter voyages miserable. Pirates borrowed this technique from mountain travelers and cold-weather explorers. Pirates basically turned their bedding into frozen shields that fought hypothermia instead of arrows. When fabric froze solid, wind couldn't get through it at all. Ocean winds could make temperatures feel 20 or 30 degrees colder, turning a merely cold night into something that could kill you. The process started with completely soaking blankets or sail fabric in water. Pirates then hung these materials in freezing air until they became stiff sheets of ice-covered cloth. The frozen barriers were set up around sleeping spots to create wind-free zones that felt much warmer than open areas. Working with frozen fabric took skill and perfect timing. Too much water made the material too heavy to move. Too little water meant it wouldn't freeze solid and would barely block any wind. The whole thing looked like pirates were doing the world's weirdest laundry in the middle of a snowstorm. Several frozen barriers could be arranged together to protect larger areas. Pirates discovered that setting up frozen blankets in L shapes around their sleeping spaces made surprisingly good windbreaks. These temporary shelters trapped body heat and blocked the worst ocean winds. The technique worked best during long cold periods when temperatures stayed below freezing for days or weeks. Using blankets as wind barriers meant giving up their normal job as warm bedding. It was like being a carpenter who only worked with ice and cloth. Having visible protection from the elements helped crew morale during the darkest, coldest parts of winter trips. This creative use of frozen fabric showed the cleverness that separated successful pirate crews from those who didn't survive their first winter at sea. Pirates turned wet laundry into life-saving armor. Probably the only time in history anyone was happy about frozen underwear. Some pirates took survival partnerships to an entirely different level. Sleeping with animals meant pirates shared their beds with livestock and pets during cold winter nights, turning living creatures into heating systems that provided warmth for both species. Pirate ships regularly carried goats, pigs, chickens, and other animals for fresh meat, eggs, and milk, making this arrangement work for everyone. It was like having a furry, four-legged electric blanket that occasionally made noise and wanted food. Body heat from a single goat could warm a sleeping spot enough to prevent hypothermia during the coldest nights. Pirates discovered that animals created steady warmth all night long, unlike fires that burned out or heated objects that cooled down. Cats and dogs made especially popular sleeping companions because they were smaller and easier to manage than farm animals. Pirates basically invented therapy animals, except instead of emotional support, they provided thermal support. Dogs were particularly good because they were loyal, protective, and created substantial body heat compared to their size. Making these arrangements work required understanding animal needs and habits. Goats preferred sleeping standing up or lying in certain positions, so pirates had to adjust their sleeping setups accordingly. Pigs were excellent heat sources, but took up lots of space and had strong opinions about how they wanted to sleep. Cleanliness became a major concern when sharing beds with farm animals. The smell situation on pirate ships went from terrible to farm-level challenging. Different animals offered different advantages as sleeping partners. Chickens were small and warm, but woke everyone up at dawn. Goats offered the best balance of size, warmth, and manageable sleeping habits. Some pirates formed strong emotional connections with their animal sleeping partners that lasted long after cold weather ended. Pirates who had spent months keeping warm with a particular goat found it surprisingly hard to turn that goat into dinner later. During the worst storms, animals and humans needed each other more than ever. It was like having roommates, except your roommate had 4 legs and couldn't help pay for anything. Knowledge about animal sleeping partnerships spread among pirate crews through informal networks. While living heat sources worked well, some pirates preferred warming methods they could control more precisely. Hot sand and hot stones involved heating these common materials over cooking fires to create portable heat sources during freezing winter nights. This technique turned ordinary beach materials into effective heating systems that provided hours of steady warmth without needing constant fuel or attention. Collecting the right stones started during coastal raids or beach visits. Basically, they went shopping for heating stones, except the shopping involved weapons and sometimes violence. Volcanic rocks and river stones worked best because they had already been tested by natural heating and cooling over many years. Sand was often easier to get and work with than stones. Pirates would fill metal containers, cloth bags, or even socks with sand, then heat these containers over cooking fires until the sand reached burning temperatures. The heated packages could then be wrapped in extra cloth and placed under bedding or inside clothing. Getting the temperature right was important for both safety and effectiveness. The whole operation looked like pirates were running a medieval spa, except instead of relaxation, they were fighting for their lives against freezing to death. Pirates developed ways to test temperatures using small amounts of water or spit. Multiple heated containers could provide warmth for entire sleeping areas when placed strategically. Pirates learned to put heated sandbags at the foot of sleeping spots to warm feet and legs, while heated stones were positioned near bodies and hands where blood flow was most important. The technique worked especially well during long stays on islands where fuel was easy to find. It was like setting up temporary pirate beach resorts, except the only amenity was not dying from cold. Wrapping techniques became an art form among experienced users, requiring multiple layers that kept materials insulated while allowing gradual heat transfer. Different crew members became specialists in heating techniques. Pirates who spent most of their time trying to steal valuable treasures found themselves treating common beach sand and ordinary rocks like precious supplies when survival was at stake. Pirates discovered that the most valuable treasure wasn't gold or silver. It was a warm rock that wouldn't burn your hands off. While stones and sand provided reliable warmth, the most convenient heating method required nothing more than what many pirates already carried. Smoking pipes provided pirates with both physical warmth and mental comfort during brutal winter months at sea. This wasn't just about enjoying tobacco. Pipe smoking became an important survival strategy that warmed hands, faces, and bodies while helping sailors get through long, cold work shifts. Pipes were basically tiny personal fireplaces that fit in your pocket and worked with one hand. The burning tobacco made a concentrated heat source that warmed whatever body parts were closest to the pipe. Pirates learned to hold pipes in specific ways to warm their hands, while the heated stem and bowl provided warmth to their faces and mouths. Sharing pipes created important friendships during the hardest parts of winter trips. Tobacco was expensive and often hard to get, so pirates developed detailed sharing systems. It was like early communism, except instead of sharing wealth, they were sharing tiny amounts of fire. These arrangements built trust and cooperation among crew members. Pipe smoking also worked as a timing tool for the work shifts and activities. Pirates learned to measure how long various tasks took based on how long it took to smoke a pipe bowl. The routine aspects of pipe preparation provided mental benefits that helped distract from cold, discomfort, and fear. Keeping pipes lit during storms required special techniques to prevent the fire from being put out by wind and spray. It was like trying to keep a campfire burning in a hurricane while making sure the campfire could fit in your mouth. Tobacco became so important that it worked like money on many ships. Group smoking sessions provided opportunities for planning, storytelling, and keeping spirits up during the worst parts of winter trips. Pirates were literally burning money to stay warm, since tobacco was one of the most valuable things they could steal or trade. Taking care of pipes and tobacco supplies became critical during long, cold periods. Knowledge about effective pipe smoking for warmth spread through the pirate community along with other survival techniques. Pirates turned their worst habit into their best survival tool, probably the only time in history smoking actually saved lives instead of ending them. These 7 methods show just how clever and desperate pirates became when facing winter's deadly cold. From burning fat to sharing beds with goats, pirates transformed ordinary items into life-saving heat sources through pure necessity and dangerous creativity.